how to overcome victim consciousness and realize you are God. In this video, I'm going to be tearing down some sacred cows. I'm going to be pushing some deep buttons. But if you can sit with this and really absorb what I'm saying here, it's going to change everything about your life, from your relationships to your finances to your physical body. This is the fundamental key to understanding how to create the reality of your choice, your desired reality. And it starts off with one simple trick. You see, when you came to this earth, you were actually a god. You were actually consciousness itself, but you wanted to have an experience. So you took on an identity. And this really became very solid and tangible for you about the age of 3, when you started to believe that you were a separate person. You see, up until the age of 3, you believed that you were actually one being with your mother. This is a classically understood, studied, known fact about small children, is that they think they are one being with their mother up until around the age 3, when they individuate and they realize, oh, I'm separate. This is me in this body, and my mother is separate to me. And so ever since that time, when you started to believe that you were separate, you began taking on beliefs that reinforced that idea of separation. You began to act like you were separate, and everything in the external world, the supposedly external world, which is really just a projection that you're filtering through the eyes of this separate being, everything in your external world, in your dream world, in your illusion world, in your simulation world, in your matrix world, whatever label you want to put on it, it's the exact same thing. Everything kept reflecting back to you the way you saw yourself, which was separate, right? So here you are looking out at the mirror, which is the world, and the mirror is just telling you exactly how you feel. You already feel separate, and it's just going, yes, you do feel separate. Yes, you are separate, because that's what you believe you are. And so people would tell you, yeah, that's you. You're that body. You're responsible for what that body does. You need to take care of that body. You need to take care of your stuff, and don't touch my stuff. And as you aged, as you got older, and you reached adulthood, you finally became settled in this separate identity. Now, the problem with that, the problem with believing that you are this body and mind locked up in a bag of skin, is that subconsciously, without realizing it, you become the victim of the world. And this is a very deep archetype, which is why it's one of the major archetypes in the arcana, in the tarot, because the tarot is just a psychological map of different modes of being, different character traits, different archetypes that we as human beings, that we as souls having a physical experience, move through in the various stages of our journey. The victim is one of the deepest archetypes, and it's one of the hardest ones to shake because it's so fundamental, and it appears here around about the age of 3. So I'm going to explain how this looks in your world, how you can recognize where you're being the victim, so that you can begin to let this identity go. Because once you can let go of the victim, you become the creator by default. You become capable of actually changing people in your world. Now, this is some very deep and controversial and triggering stuff that I'm saying, okay? Because hardly anyone is going to tell you this, that you can actually change people. It sounds like manipulation, right? It sounds like witchcraft, black magic, all that stuff you've been taught to believe. But isn't it funny that when you see someone a different way, for example, previously you might have looked at someone and gone, I don't like that person. In fact, I'm judging that person because they're wrong. The way they're acting is wrong. Their behavior is wrong. I don't like it. But then isn't it interesting how when you change your perspective on that person, maybe you got some understanding on what they were going through. Maybe suddenly something clicked for you and you realize they're going through something that you were going through, but that you healed from or you overcame. And then suddenly that person looks different to you. And you stop projecting all of your trash onto them. And the moment you change that perspective, they start acting different. What's going on there? Does that sound like manipulation to you? That's what I'm talking about. See, when you realize you're the creator projecting the entire world, and you're even projecting yourself, right? Your idea of who you are. Once you realize that this is all coming from your God self, your higher mind, then you can take full control of this. The world is a controllable thing. It's not controlling you. You're not the victim of any other person. You're not the victim of any event that's happened in your life, any trauma, any nasty experience. And you might go, well, why did that happen then? Why did it happen? That's a bit deeper and we'll get into that. So, how do you notice this victim archetype showing up in your daily life? Let's give you some examples so you can really start to recognize it and you can catch it before you get into that story and you can start letting it go so that you tap into this creative frequency. Let's look at an example of being in a relationship, right? Let's say you're in a relationship right now and you're finding that your partner is treating you in a way that you don't appreciate. You don't like it. Maybe they're being nasty to you, or maybe they're being manipulative to you. You know, maybe you're in a toxic relationship. Ooh, doesn't that sound intense? You see, spiritual people in the early baby stages of spirituality love to go around throwing this toxic label on as many people as they can. Because the reality is, in your early stages of awakening, you've got a lot of trauma erupting up. Now, I'm going to get deep here. If this singes you a bit, it's okay. Chill. In the early stages of your awakening, when you start to realize that you've got to take responsibility for the way you feel and not blame it on anyone else, and you are the creator and you are a spirit having a physical experience, in those early stages, all this trauma starts coming up and it's ugly and it's intense and it's painful. And so the easiest way to deal with that in the early stages of your journey, if you're still immature, is to project it onto all the people around you and start saying, you're toxic. I'm in a toxic relationship. I'm with a narcissist. I'm the victim of abuse. You know? All these labels we hear, and the mainstream media loves to latch onto this stuff because guess what? This world is set up in such a way again, that it wants to reflect back to you constantly that you are the victim. And guess why? Because when you fall prey to all these projections and you're pushing them out onto other people, you become extremely easy to manipulate. Right? You become like a puppet on a string. And anyone can take advantage of you when you're acting like this, and when you're projecting, and when you're pushing the blame outside, and you're saying the problem's with them, it's not with me. Let me give you another example. You could have a friendship, and then that person you're friends with starts to withdraw from you, right? And you might start feeling like, oh, I'm not good enough, or I'm not interesting, or I'm not fun to be with, I'm not attractive, I'm not valuable, right? And you start getting into all these stories. And what starts to happen is you're feeling as though there's something wrong with you, right? But what it's actually showing you is where you're holding on to that victim mentality. Based on someone else's behavior, you're now starting to feel like you're a victim. And it's just showing you where you're holding on to a limited identity, where you're holding on to this sense that I'm just poor little me, alone in the world, locked up in a bag of skin. But the reality is, you are just being shown parts of yourself that you need to let go of. And it's actually got nothing to do with the other person. The other person's just mirroring back to you where you're still attached to a small identity, and where you still feel like you need external validation to be okay, right? Got some flow starting to happen, the throat chakra is starting to open up. That person is showing you where you're still looking for external validation to feel okay. You see, it's not because they withdrew from you that you're starting to feel lonely. It's that you already felt lonely, or you already felt alone or isolated, and they're just starting to bring that out. They're just starting to draw that out of you. They're just starting to expose you to that. This is the value of relationships. This is the value of being in this 3D world, is that it's the perfect mirror. That's why we come here. It's the perfect mirror to show you what's going on inside of you so that you can grow and evolve and realize who you truly are. So begin to look now at everywhere in your life that you're blaming. What are some more examples? Okay, this is a common one. If you're a woman, you will blame men for your emotional pain. Okay, that's a really common one. If you're a man, you'll blame women for your emotional relationship pain. But again, it's just a mirror showing you where you haven't healed, where you're holding on to this identity that you need external validation to be okay. But what it's going to show you as you go through that process of facing the pain which that's triggering in you, and sitting with that pain and owning it, you'll realize this pain's coming from within you. It's self-created. They're just touching your hot button that was already inside of you. And so how do you let it go? You feel. Okay, this is the key. So the victim identity is just the top layer, right? It's just the top layer. As you start to face it, you start to confront negative thoughts. And then as you begin to penetrate deeper out of those stories, you're going to get into feelings. And this is where the magic happens. This is where the healing happens, in the feeling level. So I want you to take whatever it is right now that you're blaming for your lack of progress, you're blaming for feeling stuck. It could be your career, it could be your business, you're blaming customers or clients, you're blaming the market, you're blaming external conditions, the external 3D world, when in reality, you've just got some feelings in here that need to be processed. You need to sit with them. Doesn't mean you obsessively think about it. It means you sit with the feeling behind the thoughts, the feeling behind the victim identity, and you start to release it. It's called letting go. Letting go. And see, most people never get to this point because when shit starts to get ugly in the 3D world, they just move their attention to another distraction, another relationship, another money-making opportunity, another friend circle. They just keep shifting their attention away from the thing that's causing them pain. They're in constant distraction, constant consumption mode. And they never let themselves get still enough to get to the root of the problem, which is this stuck energy, these stuck feelings within them. So that is how you escape the victim identity. You need to start feeling the feelings, releasing the energy behind that identity. And as you do that, you're going to get lighter and lighter and lighter. This is the process of awakening on steroids. And this process is going to go deeper and deeper, and you're actually going to get pulled deeper into uncomfortable feelings. Because in order to realize who you truly are, which is God, you need to go through a process called Christification. We're going a little bit deeper now, okay? You see, people like Buddha, Christ, Krishna, Gandhi, all these figures that we know of throughout history who left such a deep impression on the world, they all had to go through this process. They all had to go through this process, this layer by layer, stripping back of stories, identities, feelings, until eventually they got deep enough and they realized that they were the one creating the entire world. You are the one creating this entire 3D reality. It feels so real to you because you're in it. But the truth is, you're projecting this from a higher level. You're projecting this from a higher level of mind. You see, you're seeing a picture on your screen of your phone right now, and that picture is just being created by waves on a higher level. There's information traveling into your phone, being received by your phone and appearing as a picture, as a solid picture. But behind the picture, there's pure information. Behind this 3D world is pure information. And information is just another way of saying thought. This entire world is your thought being projected, including this identity that you have as a separate person. It's just an illusion. So as you go through this process, you're going to get exposed to deeper and deeper levels of feeling. And you're going to have to start confronting deeper and deeper evils in the world and realizing that you're projecting them. Murder, natural disasters, sexual abuse, greed. This is all your projection. And I know that's so confronting, but as you start accepting this and owning your projection, you're going to become more and more powerful, because you can no longer say, oh, I don't like him, he's bad, she's this, she's that, because you realize you are the one creating the images. And as you start to forgive the images, and now we're getting deeper into how to let go of the victim mentality, it's actually about forgiving. You realize that's you pushed out. Every single person, that person who did that horrible thing to you, that person who abused you, took advantage of you, used you, treated you like trash, that was you projecting your inner feelings of worthlessness, manifesting them as an external person who could play out the image that you had inside. I know this is deep shit and it's pretty heavy, but it's actually pretty liberating when you accept it, because this is going to set you free. So start to do this. Start to, every time you get triggered, every time you're like, why did that happen? I don't like that. Oh my God, that's horrible. Catch yourself and be like, oh, I'm actually projecting that. There is no real reality in that thing, in that person. They are something that's coming out of me. And if I change the way I see them and forgive them, thereby forgiving that part of myself, we both get free. They will change based on the way I see them now. And I'll change. And I'll start to realize that I'm the creator. I hope that switched on a light for you. I know it did. But are you going to now look at it closer? Are you going to run with that? I'll leave that up to you.